Welcome to today's session. I hope you had a good weekend. I don't know when I'll post this YouTube video, but the recording of this session is on Monday, so hence I'm asking. I hope you had a good weekend. I had a good weekend. I did some writing and I had a session outside in my nice patio balcony. And so I'm quite happy whenever I'm teaching and writing. That's what I love to do. So, interestingly, uh, uh, I once read a book called One Straw Revolution by a Japanese author. His name was Masunobu something Fukuoka. I can't pronounce it, but the name of the book I get it correctly. The name of the book is One Straw Revolution. So there's this. Um, so he was, I think, a certain kind of a scientist or a chemist or something in chemistry. And then he gave up his one fine day. He had some epiphanies sitting on a park bench overlooking the lake or something like that. And then he just decided to give up his job and he went off into the mountains and I think, bought some land, or he already had that land. And he started farming over there and then living off the land. And then he's in many ways he's considered the father of organic farming. So he wouldn't really cultivate much. He would just allow the land to do whatever it had to do. He would just do the basic minimum, and then he lived off the land, and then he grew his food and just lived there basically. And then if you read this book, The One Straw Revolution, of course, it is about farming, organic farming, essentially, but it is also a philosophy. And I read this book like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years back. I don't know when I read this book. And, but it really impacted me because the book said, one of the things that book said is that we seem to have, because we have cut ourselves off from nature, we have made our lives very, very synthetic, very, very artificial, very, very divided. Now, what did he mean by saying that? Is that if you're living close to nature, or if you're living in harmony with the land, then there is no division between this is work and this is holiday, or this is what I do to earn a living and this is what I do to spend a living. This, because of the modern civilization and because of how we are living our lives now, we have kind of divided our life, that this is work life or this is professional life, and then I go to an office and I mm, do something and I earn money, and then through that money, then I use that to live a comfortable life. I do things I like to do in my free time, and I like to, whatever your hobbies or whatever you may pursue. But basically, work is separate and life is separate. So that division, and then of course the term comes work-life balance. Then that's because we consider work as separate and we consider life as separate. So hence we have to be sensitive to how much time are we spending doing work, how much time are we spending doing other things related to our life, relationships and entertainment, hobbies, creative pursuits, whatever. So hence the need for work-life balance. But he says that if you're living close to nature, then there is no such thing as division between work and life. There is no need for work life balance. There is only life. What does he really mean by that? He means by that is that when you get up in the morning, then you have to, if you're living off the land, particularly if you're living off the land, then you have to work in the land, because if you don't work in the land, then you can't produce your food. You can't generate food out of it. So you have to work in the land, and then you have to do whatever you need to do with the soil, fertilizing, taking care of the various aspects of the land. So there is no such thing as work life balance. And when you're working with the land, then you are connected to Mother Earth, and then you don't need to go to the gymnasium for your exercise, because your work itself, when you're working in the field, when you're doing some physical work itself, is the exercise. You don't need to go work on some toning your muscles and cardio and all of that, because you're working off the land, you're doing physical work, so that creates the exercise. Similarly, you're growing your food, so you don't need to go somewhere and buy vegetables and you have to depend on the marketplace. You are sort of creating your own uh, produce, so to speak, and you're taking care of things on the land. So there's no division. So I think that had a great impact on me, that how we, because of a modern life and a modern civilization, we seem to have divided this life, work, life. And then now work has been divided into work and life, and now we have to find a balance between it. So while I see the wisdom of sort of living close to nature, living off the land, and even if somebody can't live off the land, it is uh, it is at least important to do what gives you meaning, what gives you joy, because if you are just working just to earn a livelihood, then then it's really sad, I would say. I mean, I used to be like that once upon a time, and I used to earn my, like, I don't know how many of you know, I qualified as a chartered accountant many decades back, once upon a time. And then I used to go to the corporate world, and I used to be an auditor when I began my corporate journey. And then, wear that patta and swipe, go in, carry a laptop, and wear a tie and all that stuff. And being a chartered accountant really didn't give me any joy and didn't give me any meaning and no fulfillment at all. I mean, I think I just became a chartered accountant uh, because others, in whenever I was in college, I'd taken up commerce. And I don't even know why I took up commerce, but everyone else was doing that, so I did that. And so so I went just with the flow, and then everyone after commerce were doing chartered accountancy. So I said, okay, chalo, let's. And I sincerely studied and I became a chartered accountant. And I was very happy that I became a chartered accountant. Not that I knew what necessarily life as a chartered accountant would entail as such. All I did was study hard for the exams, memorize, reproduce, and uh, become a chartered accountant. Yeah. Then when I became a chartered accountant, I realized that this doesn't really give me any joy and any kind of a satisfaction. So why I'm talking about this is because I just began with this, talking about how writing and teaching gives me so much joy. And so, like I was saying, that if we are not, I mean, one is, of course, if you can live close to nature, that's great. If not, at least if you're doing something which comes naturally to you, then that gives great amount of joy and that gives a great amount of meaning. But if we are just working for the sake of financial security, sometimes it's not even about the fact that there is a great financial need as such, but It's simply lack of self knowledge, because our education does not is not an education which talks about knowing yourself. Our education, our whole culture is about getting more and more information about the world, whether it's history, geography, science, mathematics. But there is no, what about self knowledge? And I'm not even talking self knowledge in terms of like some high spiritual terms like who am I, or soul, or awareness, nothing. I'm just talking simple self knowledge in terms of, what is it that gives me joy, what do I love to do, what is my natural gift and talent, what is my creative self expression. Because the whole of education is sort of becoming very batch oriented. If there are what, 30 people in the class, and everyone is supposed to study this at the same time, and then everybody is supposed to give an exam at the end of the term, and then there is competition between people, and then you are trying to outdo each other, and this whole business of competing against each other, and then deriving a sense of self-worth from beating somebody else and coming first in class. I mean, that is the whole culture, and which is why there is so much insecurity when we grow up. That the insecurity, of course, is that we don't know what we want, but a greater insecurity is we are constantly looking at what others are doing, and then we feel more and more insecure. And now, add to that, because of social media, we can see far more what others are doing, and then we can feel more and more insecure because we feel, oh, others are doing better, oh, I'm feeling left behind, I am not worthwhile, or whatever it is. So the education, because none of our in our growing up, anyone paid emphasis to get us in touch with what is it that gives me joy and meaning. Now, what gives me joy and meaning? Meaning could be something different. Like if I were to give the example of my chartered accountant who I go to for my income tax returns, he's a damn good chartered accountant. If anyone wants a good chartered accountant, please get in touch with me. He loves his job because that comes naturally to him. So I have nothing against chartered accountancy as such. It is just that different people are wired differently. So it is important for us to know what gives me joy rather than to do something just because it's giving me more money, or just because this is in vogue, or just because everyone is working in the corporate world. So I also have to work in the corporate world. What I'm doing, I don't know. In fact, one of my fascinations was, and I just want to work in the corporate world, have a laptop, put on a tie, have that swiping card. And I used to see people and I said, like, oh, I want to be one of them. What I would do, whether it would be fulfilling, no interest. Just I want to be like. So that self knowledge is very, very critical for us to feel at home with ourselves. And that self knowledge, how does that self knowledge come? So we'll talk about that. But since I spoke about this word home, I just wanted to share what happened in yesterday's session that I did with a few people and Dharam Code where I'm staying. Uh, I asked them, what is it that gives you, what is it that you're truly seeking? We had an initial discussion, and then I asked them, what is it that you're truly, truly seeking? What is it that you truly, truly want? And then I asked them, okay, close your eyes for a few moments and just check in and ask yourself, what is it that I truly, truly want? Leaving aside everything, this is really what I truly want. And then you all can also do this exercise. You can close your eyes and then ask yourself, what is it that I truly want? What is it that I'm truly seeking? And then after some time, when they had done the exercise, they opened their eyes, and I said, okay, so what is it that you truly want? So one person said, okay, what I realized, what I truly want is happiness. I said, okay, fine. Then another person said, what I truly want is um, peace of mind. I realized that when I'm free of all these muddle of thoughts, conflicting thoughts, and all this creates it's like a burden. It's stressful. So I just want peace of mind. Another person said, you know what I want? I want a state of no mind. I have had a glimpse and I've had a taste of having no mind. No mind means a mind free of thoughts, and it's such a beautiful experience, and it's such a beautiful state to be in. Then suddenly one of them asks me, so what is it that you want? What is it that you are truly seeking? So I also did the same exercise, and I closed my eyes, and uh, and I said, okay, what is it that I truly want? And there's only one word that really came to me, and that one word that came to me was, I want home. Home as in HOME, and not home, 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 home. And what I meant was home is that I want a space where I feel this is where I belong. Now, when I say a space which says that this is where I belong, it does not only mean a physical space. It doesn't only mean a location. Of course, that's part of it, that a space, a physical space where I feel I belong. But there are many aspects to it. And one of the aspects we have already begun in terms of talking about it. The one aspect that we are already talking about it is related to a work or purpose. When I'm doing something, like for me, when I'm writing or when I'm teaching, it's just so fluid, it's just so flowing, it's just so spontaneous. It doesn't seem like any hard work. I have to prepare, I have to do that. It just comes so naturally, so effortlessly, because that is what nature has bestowed me with, or that is my natural essence. Now, if you ask me to be a chartered accountant, oh, that will be like that will be like torture for me. So, which is what I've qualified. So, and not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with chartered accountancy. It's maybe that is home for somebody else. You're getting what I'm saying? So, one aspect of home is where I feel this work, I belong to this work, or this work belongs to me, whatever. For somebody, it could be teaching, somebody, it could be gardening, for somebody, it could be cooking, for somebody, it could be dancing, for somebody, it could be um, doing scientific research, for somebody else, it could be teaching yoga, for some, it could be different for different people. But the key is that when you are doing that work, it doesn't seem like work. It seems so effortless. It seems so joyous. It just seems so fulfilling. It enriches you. It doesn't tire you. You lose a sense of time and space. You become so one when you're doing that you don't realize how much time has passed or where you are. It's just you become totally integrated, almost like the universe is flowing through you. So that is one element of home, purpose, that what is it that gives me that sense of belonging? What kind of work gives me that sense of belonging? And maybe for somebody, it could be living off the land. Like I give the example of this Japanese gentleman who went and gave up his uh, city job and started doing organic farming. So whatever that may be, it's different for different people, but that's one very important element of our life, which is what we are doing, because we can't keep changing what we do every 6 months, every 1 year, because whatever we devote ourselves, then, and if we want to uh, do something sustainable, meaningful for, it has to be natural to us. Only then it will sustain. If something is not natural to us, it will not sustain. You may take up one corporate job, you may leave that, you may switch one department, you may switch one function. That's because you're doing it only for the money, you're just doing for career progression. But supposing if your innate expression is to be an artist, you can't switch not being an artist to doing something else. Of course, one has to look into various factors, especially when you grow up and when you have already progressed and you have financial responsibilities. Then you have to figure out how will you find integration with your work, but that gives you meaning and joy. But then if you don't do that, then there is a feeling of lack of fulfillment. It doesn't feel like I'm home. You're doing some work, but it's not home. It is work. That's why that divorce between, then I have to do work life balance, because now I'm working. Now I have to find life and I have to find time for life. But if you're doing what gives you joy, then there is no work life balance, and there's only life, because you're doing something that comes naturally to you. And if you look in nature, everything functions according to its natural essence. Like a rose doesn't have to do work to smell like a rose, because that's the nature of the rose. Or um, a, a certain kind of a tree, a palm tree, doesn't have to make effort to become very tall. It's in its nature to. Similarly, human beings have a natural essence, but because we are conditioned, we are so-called educated. There's a YouTube video which you can see on this, by Sir Ken Robinson. The name of the YouTube is video is "Do Schools Kill Creativity?" Because we are asked to conform, and then get into this whole competition and this whole rat race. We lose touch with what is natural and creative to us. So, one element of that feeling of home, that feeling of integration, is when I'm doing something which comes naturally, easily to me, which gives me joy and fulfillment. And the process the joy is in the process itself. The joy is not in an outcome that I will get a certain salary or that I will get a certain reward, I will get this fame or recognition. The joy is when I'm doing that, I'm just feeling so one and fulfilled, that the reward is in the action itself. The second aspect about home is, like, of course, the place where you are staying. That should also feel like home. For somebody, home could be like, I need to live close to the mountains, I need to be close to nature, and that feels like home to me. Um, I don't need the luxuries of a modern day apartment, and that feels like home. For somebody, it could be, no, not the mountains. Maybe I want to be near the sea, the ocean. Now that feels like home for me. For somebody, maybe just living in the city, in an apartment, that could be like home. So how, and no one can really say that what feels home for one person has to feel like home for another. But the space, that wherever you stay, whatever that space is, whatever that location is, should also nourish you, also should feel you like, okay, I feel like coming back to this space, I feel like coming back to this space. And since the time I moved here to Dharamkot, I'm really enjoying my stay here, and especially the new homestay that I have. Uh, so this feels like home for me, and it's very intuitive. Whenever, as soon as you see a place, as soon as you see a home, you just know this feels like home. It's a very intuitive connection. So that's the other element of wanting to come back home, which is a physical space. So a purpose that you feel aligned to is one aspect of feeling a sense of home, a sense of belonging, a place where you feel comfortable, nurtured. That also is an element of home, a sense of belonging. And the third aspect is, who are you living with? People. Hmm. Are you are the people around you, uh, whether it's your family members, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your partner, whether it's whoever, your friends, because we are, of course, most of us are not hermits living in some Himalayan cave. We are all living in society, and then there are people uh, around us. So, do these people make us feel comfortable? Which means, is it easy for me to express myself to these people? Is it easy for me to be understood? Is it easy for me? Do I feel secure and comfortable and not judged by people around me? Do I, um, what's the, yeah, do I feel like I can be myself with people around me? And mind you, it's not necessary that your the family that you are born into has to make you feel like that, or you will get that feeling with the family you're born into. If you are lucky, then perhaps you may get that set of parents, that set of siblings, or that family where you feel this feels like home. But not everyone has that luck, that karma, that you get a sense of home in the family that you are born into. And sometimes, therefore, you have to find your family. Family means then people who resonate with your values, people who understand you, people who don't judge you, people who are willing to listen to you, people who appreciate your gifts, appreciate your talents. Then that is your family. They may not be blood ties, but then that becomes your family. That becomes your tribe, so to speak. And that gives you a sense of home, that sense of belonging. So, purpose, finding the right purpose, finding the right place, and finding the right set of people. So, at the physical, mental level, I think these are the three criterias that give you a sense of feeling of being home. And finally, now coming to the essence, now coming to this philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, or coming to the philosophy of oneness, or coming to what these classes are really about, finding your true self. So if we look back in terms of, what most people want, and also what those students said, I want peace of mind, I want happiness, or I want a state of no mind. Why is it that, the question is, why is it that we don't feel at home when there are too many thoughts going on in our mind? What's Why is it that it's not thoughts are going on, from morning to night, thoughts are going on. They say you have 80,000 thoughts. Most of them are unproductive. Most of them are, you know, most of them also are disturbing thoughts, because you don't want to think those thoughts, but they are still there. They make you feel sometimes uncomfortable. So in a way, we are not using our mind. The mind is using us, or the mind is abusing us, in fact, one could say, because it is creating thoughts which is creating discomfort, but we are not able to stop it. So why is it that a mind full of thoughts doesn't feel like home? Hmm. So it doesn't feel comfortable, which means if it doesn't feel comfortable, means then that is not our home. That is not where we belong. That, because we all want a state which is free from this constantly chatter, 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 chatter. Like if I give you a pill, or if I give you some medicine, or if I have a button and I press that and I say that, okay, by taking this, no thoughts. Hmm. As long as you want, there will be no thoughts. It's really a very blissful state to be in. And actually speaking, most of addictions in the world are nothing but trying to numb the mind. Now, whether you see alcohol, or whether you use any kind of addictive, whether it's drugs of any kind, or any kind of addictive behavior, it is you're trying to escape the mind, because you don't want this mind which is like such a burden. Hmm. It doesn't feel like home. It doesn't feel like this is where I belong. Now, because, so one way to free yourself from the mind is to move into a state of absolute unconsciousness. Now, what do you do to get into absolute unconsciousness? You numb the mind. Start drinking, start doing some drugs, or you do some other activity. Start eating, so you get some temporary pleasure. You get into gambling, or you get into some kind of, even sometimes people get into adventure activities because that gives them a dopamine high, and then that gives them a adrenaline rush. Or you that get into shopping of some kind of something to sort of divert the attention from these constant thoughts, and then that sort of getting into a state of unconsciousness. But a better way of freeing ourselves from the mind, uh, a more conscious way to free ourselves from the mind. And mind is nothing but, imagine it's a thought generating machine, which is generating thoughts without our permission, is to watch the mind. Now, if I were to give you a sort of a metaphor, an interesting metaphor, and then we'll do a small exercise. And imagine that our mind is like a mouse hole. And from this mouse hole appear a number of mice. Hmm. And the mice are nothing but thoughts. So there's a mouse hole called the mind. Each person has this mouse hole. And from this mouse hole, constantly mouse are coming one after the other, one after the other, one after the other, like 80,000 mice a day. And these mice are nothing but different kinds of thoughts. Now, this this state of affairs is not pleasant for most people, because they want a state where there is freedom from this constant mind, thoughts, thoughts, thoughts. So what you can do is, and imagine that in this room, which has a mouse hole, and where like they're constantly having thoughts and mice are coming, that there is a cat in that room, and this cat is very malnourished. Nobody has paid attention to this cat. Nobody has fed this cat. Nobody has given this cat any kind of milk or nourishment. So it's a very weak cat. So the mice are having a field day. It's a dark room, and the mice are, running, scampering, even biting the cat, because the cat is so weak it can't even do anything. And this cat, what is this cat? Cat is awareness, or the ability to witness. This is what the cat is. So let's do a simple exercise. You can sit comfortably. You can close your eyes. We'll just do a very short exercise. It won't be very long. So sit comfortably, close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and focus your attention on very intently. Imagine that this attention, this focusing is the eyes of the cat. Focus your attention on this mouse hole called the mind, from where all these mice or thoughts appear. And look at this mouse hole very, very intently to see what is the next mouse, or which is the next thought that is going to come. So that's the exercise. Simple. Observe the mind to see now what thought is going to come. And don't make this a serious activity. Do it in a easy, playful manner. Do not shift your attention from wherever the mind is. Keep looking at it. Keep watching it. And just see what thought is going to emerge next. Keep looking. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And gently open your eyes. Now, based on general feedback that when I ask people, so what was your experience of doing this? Like yesterday, someone said, uh, when I started looking at this mouse hole called the mind to see what thoughts, then there were very few thoughts. In fact, there was only one thought that was coming was what is the next thought that is going to come? Now that is a thought itself. So the mind has now taken on this role. What is the next thought that is going to come? And that becomes a thought. Somebody else said, when I really started looking at the mind very intently, like shining this awareness, then there were no thoughts. There was like absolutely no thoughts. I was just looking. So this is a insight. This is a clue. This is a vital piece of knowledge that when attention, and this is one of the most important things a human being has, which is attention. No matter how much money you have in the bank, there is nothing more valuable than attention. What you do with your attention determines your whole life. So if you extract your attention from this unconscious thinking, which is going on all the time, which is the mice, which are playing around, scampering around all the time in that dark room. If you feed the cat, what does it mean to feed the cat? You start paying attention to not just the mice, but to the mouse hole to see what thoughts are going to come from there, from the mind. You will notice that these thoughts or the so-called mind loses its power. Either the thoughts don't come because there is attention, there is witnessing, there is watching, or even if they come, they lose their intensity or they lose their frequency. So that's a clue. If we can watch the mind, if we can just observe the mind, then we can be free of this so-called thing of the mind. And the other clue is when we are sort of in that state of witnessing, when we are in the state of watching, there is greatest groundedness. If at all I have to use a word, there is greater stability. There's a greater connection with our own self. I'm just using words because I have no other way to communicate other than use words. But it's essentially a feeling. As compared to when the attention is lost, when the mice are playing football with my attention, then I'm like all over the place. Sometimes I'm feeling this, sometimes I'm feeling high, sometimes I'm feeling low because I don't know who am I, what I want, because my attention is totally now in unconscious thoughts. But when I get into that state of witnessing, when I get into that state of watching, then I feel that sense of home. So that's what I was coming to. That when I get into a state of witnessing, when I get into a state of watching, and sometimes you may not even call it witnessing, that state of being, presence, awareness, aware of what's happening, then that gives me a sense of stillness. That gives me a glimpse of silence. And that state of stillness, that glimpse of silence, and getting in touch with that presence feels like home. So that's another level of home, which is, like I said, there is home related to purpose. What I do gives me a sense of oneness, connection. Then a place where I stay gives me a sense of oneness, connection. People who I stay with, people around me, close to me, they give me a sense of oneness and connection. And finally, presence, that I am in touch with my, I, okay, if I have to use a word, then I would say true self, or I am not lost in my thoughts and my mind created self, but I'm in touch with something which is more grounded, which is more presence, which is existence, which is life, which is just being. And that feels like home. And then, even in that existence, there is an element that everything is changing, thoughts are changing, and perceptions are changing, and sensations are changing. Everything in existence is changing, even though that existence is always there. But there is something which is registering this whole existence. Now, you can give it a name, you can call it, this registering of this existence is happening in that thing called awareness. You can say this registering of existence is happening in emptiness. You can say that registering of existence is happening in silence. You can say whatever, these are just words. But when I am witnessing, then I realize that this mental activity chatter comes down. I get a glimpse of silence, being, presence, and in that state, that feels like home. Which is why we all look forward to going to sleep, because we get freedom from this constantly chattering mind. So, I mean, I know somehow I just started like all my sessions spontaneously. One thing led to the other. But if I really look at what today's session seems to be, it's about finding home, um, a place where I feel a sense of belonging. And while home at a physical, mental level is about a place, people, purpose, but if I have to use the word spirituality or true self, then home is a sense of just presence, just a sense of awareness, just a sense of just being conscious of existence. I'm just using different words, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. And in fact, let's end the session with a small sitting practice so that you get an experience of that feeling of home, that sense of of belonging. So let's do that. So let's sit comfortably, take a deep breath in, close our eyes. Watch this body that's breathing. Watch this body that is sensing. Watch this body that is alive. There is no person which is watching any of this. Both life is happening in the form of thoughts, sensations, feelings, breath. And the witnessing of life is also happening by itself. Life seems to have two elements: one which is changing all the time, and one which is witnessing all the time. On the screen of consciousness, different phenomena are coming and going. But there is something that is aware, watching, witnessing everything that is coming and going. It has no goal, no agenda. It is not trying to resist anything, promote anything. It simply notices whatever is coming and going. When our attention is in this space of witnessing, then that feels like home. In that state of witnessing, there is nothing missing, there is nothing incomplete, there is nothing pending. On the background of silence, all sound is heard. In the background of stillness, all movement is noticed. Even if the attention gets lost in thoughts, that's perfectly fine. Don't judge, don't criticize, don't make a goal out of being aware. When the attention comes back naturally into awareness, go back to witnessing and watching. develop a taste for being a silent witness. The more you practice, the more you realize this feels like home. Even after we come out of the sitting practice, remember this home of awareness is always there with us. All we need to do is bring back our attention from unconscious thoughts to awareness as often as we can, as often as we can. And even if we cannot, then that's perfectly fine too. Whenever we remember, we come back to awareness. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take another deep breath in and exhale. Slowly and gently, whenever you feel like it, you can gently rub your palms and cup your eyes. So, welcome back. So, if you experience a sense of peace, oneness, quietness, fine. If you didn't, and there were a lot of thoughts racing about here and there, the mice were scampering, perfectly fine. The important thing is practice. Practice, practice, diligence, devotion, dedication. That is what's truly needed. Because so much of devotion and dedication we give to things in the outer world, to our relationships, to our finances, to the work we do, to entertainment. What about the dedication and devotion towards the practice of awareness? So if we really want to come back to our home, which is always in us, then we need to practice awareness as often as we can. And I want to end by saying that this is a practice of no practice. Now, what do I mean by that? See, usually when we use the word practice, oh, I need to do my practice, it basically means that I am doing something with the hope of getting something in the future. That is what the practice is. This is, there is no I, the mind, doing it with the hope of getting something in the future. The practice is the process, and the end is the same. Like Krishnamurti used to say, the first step is the last step. So there is no outcome, there is no mind saying, oh, I need to be more mindful, I need to be more aware. This is what the mind has interpreted. No. Whenever attention comes into awareness, watch as often as you can. When it goes into unconscious thoughts, perfectly fine. But try to create some routine rituals where you can actually, like, you brush your teeth twice a day, you have a bath, I don't know how many times, once or twice a day. In Bombay, it's desirable to have it twice a day. In Dharamkot, maybe once is good enough. So, uh, so similarly, make a practice of maybe 2 times a day at least to just sit still and just practice awareness. witnessing, watching. Maybe you will say that 15 minutes I'll do that, morning, evening, whatever it may be. And even if whether I have thoughts, I have no thoughts, I'll just sit and what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to witness and observe. Why I'm doing this? There's no reason that you're doing this. Oh, I want to become enlightened. I want to become more mindful. I want to become more aware. I want to become more conscious. I want to be more responsible. I want to be free of my anger. I want to be more calm, more nothing. Because all those are goals of the mind. You're just practicing. If at all I have to give a reason, because it feels like home. And no, who doesn't want to come back home? So that's the only reason you're practicing. You're not doing this with a future goal and outcome. Because then if you do this, then if you feel reactive one day, then you'll say, oh, I'm doing so much of practice and nothing is working. And then this is how the mind is, because the mind has created a goal out of the practice. So don't do this with the intent of becoming more aware, more. You just do it just like a habit. Like you have so many habits, cultivate this habit of awareness. And what can really help us is the more you expose yourself to this wisdom and knowledge. Now, it's not necessarily that you have to only listen to me. There are other teachers as well who are saying the same wisdom of non-duality, Advaita, oneness, awareness, whatever. The more you will remember to come back to awareness, come back to your true self, the more you'll remember to come back home, the more you'll remember your true self, then rather than forgetting your true self in unconscious thoughts and stories and mental characters of the mind. So more and more, as much as you can expose yourself to the teachings, if you can meet someone in person, then that's the best. Otherwise, you can always listen to talks or read, but that knowledge is constantly a reminder: come back, come back, come back. Hmm. So don't make a goal out of this practice. This is a practice, but it is a practice of no practice. It is a doing of not doing anything, because eventually, what are we doing when we are aware? We are not really doing anything. All that is happening is the attention is shifting from being lost in unconscious thoughts to a state of witnessing. That is what's happening. There is no physical action as which is actually happening. So don't make a goal out of this practice. It is not something you're doing, you are doing, like you, the mind is doing. No, it is, this practice is a happening. The more you expose yourself to these teachings, the more awareness will come. The more you go away from these wisdom and teaching, then your mind will take you back with its unconscious thoughts and programs and patterns and whatever conversations of the unconscious mind are. So yes, so home is at a physical, mental level, place, person, purpose. But at finding our true self, it is a state of presence. It's a state of awareness. The more we can come back to presence and awareness, then that is, we are home. And that is whether, see, these things are not so much in our control: place, person, and purpose. Because you can't, supposing if you are in a job or something and you can't immediately change your job, maybe financial conditions don't allow, maybe if you're in a relationship which is not fulfilling, you can't immediately change. You can't say, okay, I want a new set of parents, these set of parents not working. I want a new spouse. Of course you can change the spouse, but it's a very cumbersome affair, legal, financially. Similarly, you can't change your place immediately. Like even if you don't like if you, someone I met yesterday say, I don't like staying in Bombay, but you can't change because your whole setup is in a place in a city. Maybe it will happen over time. So place, person, and purpose is not entirely in your hands to change immediately. It may happen that you come closer to your natural self, but this presence is always there. You can be anywhere with anyone doing anything. No one can take away this presence, this life, this consciousness. All you need to do is come into witnessing, come into witnessing, come into witnessing. No matter whatever your conditions outside, whether they are fulfilling, whether they are comfortable, whether they are uncomfortable, whether they make you feel vulnerable, whether they make you feel helpless, just watch, just watch, just watch. Okay, so with that, we end today's session, which was about finding home, a place where we belong, and eventually it's really finding. When we find our true self as that awareness, we connect more to our true self, then automatically also that guides us in terms of what place, person, or purpose is natural to us, because we are not connected to that in us. Hence we get lost in different um, bylanes which are not natural to us. Okay, so with that, let's end today's session with a small prayer. You can close our eyes, you can join our palms in namaste. Take a deep breath in and exhale. My dear higher self, help me to find home, not just as the level of finding a space, a place where I belong, persons where I feel belonging, or a purpose where I feel belonging, but finding my true home of my true self, something that never changes, something that is ever present. Help me in my practice of remembering awareness without making a goal out of it. Help me to be committed, dedicated, and devoted to this wisdom and knowledge. I seek your guidance and grace to find my true self, to realize my true self. Om Shanti Shanti. Okay. So with that, we end today's session. I'll see you in the next session. Goodbye. Take care. God bless.